Hi there, welcome to Honors Geometry, your very first flipped classroom. And this one's going to be a little bit different because all we're doing today is going over the syllabus. But I thought this would be a perfect introduction for you guys to kind of get used to and understand what a flipped classroom is. So as I'm going through today's lesson, I'm going to definitely point out some things that I want you guys to take notes on and teach you how you want to work through these lessons when you're watching them at home. So today we are going to go over the syllabus. We're not going to get through the whole entire thing. Specifically, we're going to go through the 5 classroom rules. You're going to want to make sure for your notes that you write down what each of those rules are. And then we're going to go over how your grades are configured. So what they make up of, how to get your grade and what each percentage or category weight is. Okay, so moving on to the next slide. Classroom rule number 1. Be prompt. All right, so make sure you write that part down. Classroom rule number 1, be prompt. What does this mean? This means that you need to be in your seat, ready for class, before the bell rings. So definitely write those two things down. And what does ready for class mean? Ready for class means that you have your pencil sharpened, your notebooks out, your homework stapled if you're turning it in that day. Basically, that you are ready for class to begin. You are ready for whatever we're going to be doing that day. Okay, so make sure when you're writing these down, again, you're going to want to write down what the rule is. You don't necessarily have to write down all of this part, but what the rule is and what that entitles. Or encompasses, I should say. So that means that you're going to be in your seat and ready for class before the bell rings. Okay, so moving on to the second rule. And also, again, if you haven't finished writing this kind of stuff down, if you haven't taken notes, you can always pause the video and finish up what you're writing before you move on to the next part. That's the great thing of it being on YouTube. You can just pause it, finish writing whatever you need to, and then start the video back up where we left off. Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next slide. Okay, classroom rule number 2 is be prepared. And what does this mean? So first of all, make sure you write that down in your notes that you want to be prepared. So this means that you come to class with your homework completed, or at least that you've attempted the problems. You may have homework questions and you can ask them in class. That is totally fine. But make sure that you've done your homework if there was homework assigned the night before. Bring your textbook. This is huge. We are going to be using your textbook pretty much every single day in class. You're going to be doing a lot of group work when you're working on your homeworks, as far as you'll be working with your partner, and you'll have homework problems out of your textbook. So you need to make sure that you have that textbook with you. Make sure you have a pencil, a correcting pen, and later on I'm going to go over what the correcting pen is for. And then if you want, you can bring a highlighter as well. Next, compass, protractor, and ruler. These are tools that you need specific for geometry. We are going to be using these a lot when it comes to constructions. And I'll show you in class what they all look like. But make sure that you bring that compass and that protractor and a straight edge. And a lot of times your protractor can be the straight edge. It can be your ruler. Okay, calculator. Make sure you have a graphing calculator. We're going to be needing this, especially when we get later on in class when we're going to be learning the trig. You're going to want that graphing calculator, and later on in high school too you'll need it. So for your calculator, you're going to want a TI-83, or I should say a TI-84. I think there's a couple of other ones that might be a little bit higher than that, but these are the two that you're going to want, either TI-83 or a TI-84. Okay. This is the easiest way to lose participation points, is if you do not come to class prepared. So make sure that you bring all these. If you have to borrow a calculator from me, or a compass, or you need to go to your locker because you forgot your textbook, you can lose participation points that way. So make sure that you come to class each and every day prepared for class. All right, next rule. Be respectful. This one's kind of common sense, but it's an absolute must in my classroom. Make sure that you respect yourself, your classmates, and me, your teacher. That means that you listen. So when there are people talking, or if somebody's talking in front of class, only one person talks at a time. So when I'm talking to you guys, make sure you're listening. If another student is asking a question, respect that they have a question and listen to it. Who knows? You might have the same exact question, and to ask it twice means that you were definitely not listening. No teasing. You guys are in high school, and I know that a lot of times that you know each other and you've been going to school for a very long time, so it's fun to tease each other, but you never know when somebody might take it the wrong way. So please, no teasing in my classroom. And then keep it clean. That is a double meaning. Keep it clean, I mean keep the language clean, so no vulgarity. And then also keep your desks clean. Keep the classroom clean. Throw away trash. Don't write on those desks. Okay, so again, remember, as you're going through these notes, if you haven't written it all down, feel free to pause the video to keep everything written down. Now, you don't have to write everything necessarily word for word, but it is good to write down a lot of the high points. Okay, next classroom rule. No cheating. So a lot of times I'm going to want you guys to work with each other. I think that is one of the greatest ways to learn something is when you work with each other. But collaboration does not mean copying. That does not mean simply one person does the work and the other person copies it. I want you guys to work together to figure out the problems. If you have questions, ask each other. Sometimes you might have a group quiz or a partner quiz. You'll have different versions, but you can work with each other if you're struggling on a particular problem. So collaboration, totally fine in the class. Copying, not so much. Cheating can result in a 0 on the quiz or test or homework assignment. It can also result in detention with me, or if it's severe enough, I will notify the academic dean, and that's Mr. Sheet. Trust me, you don't want me to notify Mr. Sheet. And he can take additional action depending on the severity of the cheating. So just don't do it. It's not worth it. You guys are smart kids. There is no reason for you to cheat. If you are struggling with something, I am here before school, after school. Come in and get help. There is no reason for you to receive a 0 just because you didn't know it or you weren't sure about it and you decided to copy. Just not worth it. Okay, last classroom rule. No outside electronics. Now, does this mean that you can never have your iPhone out in my classroom? No, but you need to ask permission to use it, or I will take it. And if it's a repeated offense, I will take it and notify your parents, and you will have detention. So there will be times where you guys can listen to music while you're working on your classwork, and you can take out your phone if you want to listen to music. That's absolutely fine, just as long as that's what you're using it for. Or sometimes you might use it as a calculator. Again, absolutely fine. Just make sure you ask permission to use it. Or if you need to take a picture of something on the board, because it's a lot easier to take the picture versus writing it down. Again, absolutely fine. Just make sure you ask permission to use your phone. Okay, so those are your 5 classroom rules. Hopefully you've written them all down. And then now we're going to move on to the grading policy. This is the last slide for today. So first things, your quarter grades are going to be broken down as follows. So 5% of your grade is participation points. You start out with 100% of these points. You start out with an absolute full participation, but you can lose your participation points for not staying on task during class, or for coming to class unprepared and having to either borrow something from me or go to your locker to get it. Next, 15% is homework, and there is absolutely no reason for you not to get 100% or pretty darn close to it on your homework. Now, you may miss a couple points here and there, but for the most part, these should be an easy 15%. Next, you're going to have 10% is your notes quizzes. And that's what you're going to be taking tomorrow is your first note quiz based on this lecture. So you're going to have open notes for every single flipped classroom, an open note quiz the very next day. And remember, as I said in class today, that if you have it written down on your notes, I will point it out to you for that quiz. This is not me trying to test to see if you've learned the material. It's more to make sure that you have actually sat down and you watched the video and you took notes on it. So this right here accounts for 30% of your quarter grade. This is pretty, oops, sorry about that. This is pretty easy 30% to get, almost 100 full 100% on. So between participation, homework, and notes quizzes, that makes up 30% of your total quarter grade. So next, you have 25% are just normal quizzes. So these are going to be quizzes that occur while we're going through chapters. Some of them might be partner quizzes, and I'm going to go over those a little bit later in class tomorrow or when I see you next. And some of them will be individual quizzes. And then lastly, you have 45% of your grade is made up of your chapter tests. Okay, so now that we know what the quarter grades are, let's figure out your semester grades. So your semester grades are going to be made up as follows. 20% of your semester grade will be a final exam or a final project. This final project occurs only in the second semester. You're going to have a project second semester where you're going to go over a geometric concept or a mathematician and do a report on that person or concept. And that could be either a three-dimensional project where you're building something, or you're drawing something, a two-dimensional kind of deal, or you're writing a written report. And that's only going to occur during second semester, so you don't need to worry about that just yet. And then the remaining part of your grade is going to be made up of 40% of each quarter. So each quarter grade will count for 40% of your semester grade. So that'll either be quarter 1 or quarter 3, depending on if we're in first semester or second semester, is 40% of your grade. And then quarter 2 or quarter 4 is the other 40% of your semester grade. Okay, so that is it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed your first introduction to a flipped classroom, and this one's a little bit different just because we're going over the syllabus. But hopefully you have an idea of what these will look like. As you can see, it's your teacher, me, Miss Wilkinson, who actually records them, and it's just like if you had been in class, but instead you get to watch this on YouTube. So hope you enjoyed this, and look forward to hearing your feedback next time I see you. All right, have a good one. Take care. Bye-bye.